Okay, students, let's take a look at this one also. We've looked at the other ones and now let's look at volume. Okay, now look at these two containers. One of them is measuring in liters and the other one is measuring in milliliters. Okay, all right. Now, if we look at it carefully, we're going to find out that the one with liters seems to be bigger than the one in milliliters. That's because milliliters measures in a smaller unit and liters is a bigger unit. We studied that in the last lessons that we did. Now, what are we considering now? We need to look at the two units of measurements. One of them is in milliliters and the other one is in liters. Okay, so when I pour in some contents into the one that measures in liters, I would not look at the measurement lines and say I have 5 milliliters of water in here, because what's the reason? Because the container measures in liters and I equally will not pour water in the one that measures in milliliters and then it reads up to like 900 and I say I have 900 liters of water here. No, we must be able to understand that they measure differently and we should also be able to read the measurements differently. Okay, now this measures in about 900, and like we studied yesterday, it measures like 920 milliliters of water of contents. That's what we have here. So if we pour in this same contents into the one that measures in liters, it's not going to be up to 1 liter, but we're going to read the measurements in liter. So what's the answer going to be? It's less than 1 liter, so it's going to measure what? We'll divide it. Remember that we're converting it. It's just like we're converting to a bigger unit. So 920 divided by 100, by 1000 rather, is going to be 0.920 liters. Okay, so that's how to compare measurements. They may be the same contents, but when they are being measured in different units, their value will change. In the milliliter context now, we have 920 milliliters. But as liters, if we pour it into the liter container or the liter jar, it's going to be 0.920 liters. All right? Okay, so let's look at the test tube just like we looked at it yesterday. Though these two measure in milliliters, but the focus is on the different units that we have in between them. Look at it now. We have 10 lines in between, and we have on test tube B, we have 10 lines in between, and we have a difference of 10 between each of the numbers. So 10 divided by 10 is 1. It means that between division 10 and division 20, each of those lines represents 1 unit. So if our measurements were to be between 10 and 20, maybe on the third line after 10, we'll say that we have 13 milliliters of contents in it, because remember we are adding additional one unit. The same thing applies for the test tube A. This time around we have 100 as the difference, and there is 10 lines in between each division. So we divide 100 by 10, we have 10. It means each one represents 10. We are having an additional 10 units. So if I have contents in test tube A and it's up to the level of the third line after 100, I would say I have 130 milliliters. Okay, because we are adding 10. Test tube B adds 1. Test tube A adds in 10 units. I know we said much about that yesterday, so I know you understand. So let's go ahead. Now let's look at lesson unit 8, and we'll look at how to measure lines to the nearest centimeters and meters. Of course, our student book, page 207, and the workbook is 193 to 197. Our objective we must be able to measure lines accurately in centimeters and meters. What does that mean? If my line does not fall on the accurate number, then I have to be able to count how many units are in between. The good thing is we've learned how to count the extra units that are in between two divisions, and we know how to interpret them now. So let's go to the lesson. Now look at I have a ruler here, and we're trying to measure to the nearest centimeter and millimeter. Okay, now please note this: when you're making your measurements, your ruler must align with the objects you're measuring. What I mean by that is the ruler cannot be slanted and the object you're measuring is straight. They both have to be in the same line. Okay, just like what you can see on the screen, the two black lines at the top of the ruler. You see they align very well, accurately with the ruler. Okay, that's when you can have a perfect measurement. If not, your measurements may not be perfect. So let's just quickly look at the two lines. The first line we have at the top here. Okay, the second thing, before we do that, the object must begin from the start point. That means you don't place the objects from the middle and start measuring. It must start from 0. So you need to place the objects at the beginning or to the beginning of the ruler. So look at my lines. They are both at the beginning, right? Okay, great. Now let's measure. The first line ends somewhere between 5 and 6, but it's not up to 6 and more than 5. So what am I going to do? Like we read yesterday, this has 10 divisions in between. It has 10 lines in between the two divisions, and each one is going to represent what? 0.1, because difference between 5 and 6 is 1. And the lines in between are 10. So 1 divided by 10 is 0.1, like we said yesterday. So we are adding 0.1. So let's read the first line. 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3. I think it ends on that third line after 5. So it's going to be 5.3. So what are we going to say our measurement is now? We have 5 centimeters and 3 millimeters, or we say 5.3 centimeters. Look at the second one. The second one starts from 0 as it should, and it ends somewhere between 8 and 9. Let's see where it ends. It ends on, since we now know that we're adding 0.1, so let's count. 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 8.4, 8.5, 8.6. So it ends on 8.6. We can say that the second line is 8.6 centimeters, or 8 centimeters and 6 millimeters. All right, so I believe we all understand that accurately. You're going to do your workbook and student book and a lot of measurements in it, so you get acquainted with this. So what did we learn today? We looked at how to compare different scales, where we had the scale that measured the grams, the other one measures in kilograms. So we mustn't mix things up. We must understand the units that the scale measures in. A ruler measures in millimeters, another one measures in meters, or sorry, centimeters. We must be careful not to write our measurements in a different units, like I have always emphasized. Now, we'll also learn to tell the units in between two numbers on a scale. Okay, and finally, we've learned to measure lines in centimeters and millimeters. That's what we just did now. So just do your student book, practice student book 207 and your workbook 193 to 197. Workbook, you'll be doing a lot of measurements. Just get your ruler, okay? You probably might need to draw some lines as well and measure. All right, students, it's been a good time having the lesson with you. Make sure you keep safe, always wash your hands and sanitize, and eat healthy food. So till we have another lesson tomorrow, take care of yourselves. Bye.